like a game.
You know what I really hate? I really hate it when people grow expectations for a series that prevent it from growing. I hate it when people say things like, "That's a great game, but it's not a real Final Fantasy," or "That game would be better if it was called something else, it just doesn't fit into this series." Not only does talk like this stifle creativity in favor of mundane comfort, but it also eventually cannibalizes IPs. As the series goes on, more and more expectations are solidified in different groups of people. Even if every game is essentially the same, there will be groups who prefer this minor tweak or that small change, and eventually when those things are absent, it makes those people really upset, because to them it's not a small change. But the newer games, where those things are absent, also create their own fans, and the cycle repeats indefinitely until anything you make will upset some section of your fanbase, making it impossible to compete against your own fans. And beyond even all of this, the reactions created by these expectations are completely illogical anyway. Honestly, what in the world does "that's not a real insert game here" even mean? If you're arguing that it's a questionable business decision, then yes, it might very well be one. That might be true. But it's only true because some fans are so close-minded that they would rather boycott/hate a product because it's different, rather than enjoy it for what it offers. If that wasn't the case, it wouldn't even be a bad business decision. But technically, in the world we live in, straying too far can damage sales. But regardless of that, it doesn't objectively make the game any worse, or any less deserving of a name. It's just a freaking name, and it means different things to everyone. The only thing it really can be is a bad business decision. I bring this up because MegaMan Legends fits into this camp. It's a game that's extremely different from its predecessors, and in a lot of ways, it hardly seems to have anything in common with regular Mega Man or the Mega Man X games. The one weird anomaly with MegaMan Legends is this: nobody hates it because it's different. Whether people like the game itself or not, they don't complain that it's not a real Mega Man, they just treat it like a spin-off series. Now, there might be a few reasons for that. One would be that Mega Man X already broke the walls for the series, meaning fans were inherently more open to spin-off games. Another might be that Mega Man and Mega Man X were still going alongside Mega Man Legends, so they had less to get upset about. And on top of both of those, it was the first major 3D game in the series, in a time where people just loved to play 3D games no matter what they played like. That fact could have acted like a buffer. Since so much about it was already new because it was 3D, people might not have noticed or cared about how not Mega Man it was. Boy, do I wish it was like this for everything. I really wish people could just judge games for what they offer, rather than based on a bunch of extra baggage they carry around and expect others to acknowledge. So, Mega Man Legends. It was released on August 31st, 1998 in North America. A first for the series, Legends is, again, a fully 3D action game. As yet another version of Mega Man, MegaMan Volnut, you're tasked with exploring dungeons for treasure. This is the job of diggers like him. He's not without backup, however, since he's got his stepsister Roll, his little robot helper monkey Data, and his stepfather Barrel on his side. After their airship, the Flutter, crash lands on the Isle of Catalogs, the group is tasked to find a way to fix their ship. But along the way, they'll face pirates who are trying to ravage the island for treasure, and a dark mystery concerning a legendary apocalyptic event that wipes out all human life on Catalogs Island every 100 years. A mystery that might involve Mega Man in more ways than he can understand.
You just mind your own business!
MegaMan Legends is rather typical in basic structure for the time. It's a 3D action game with heavy platforming elements and a rather open world to explore. There are people to talk to, quests to complete, minigames to play, and dungeons to traverse. Pretty standard. Unlike minigames in the series, however, Legends has an emphasis on story and world building, with many scenes being fully voice acted. The style of this game almost feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, with some mildly serious moments, but a lot more moments that are just bright, silly, and exaggerated. The basic gameplay consists of running around, shooting reaver bots, and scavenging for treasure. The controls are pre-analog stick, meaning it's the D-pad to strafe and L1 and R1 to turn. R2 locks on, and can also allow you to aim in all directions. MegaMan can jump, hang on ledges, and gains other new abilities as he goes. He gains these abilities through Roll and her mechanical expertise. Roll is really great at building things. I mean, she's great at a lot of things, but her most important role, no pun intended, is that of MegaMan's mechanic. When MegaMan brings her junk, she can turn it into attachments for him. He can get things like a helmet, jet boots, and all kinds of special weapons. These weapons can also be upgraded by Roll if you're willing to part with a little money. Special weapons range from the usual machine guns and grenade launchers to crazy stuff like lasers, drills, and even a loot vacuum. The loot vacuum is my favorite. As you kill enemies, they drop things like health and refractors, which are immediately turned into Zenny, this game's currency. With this Zenny, you can buy all sorts of items, including consumables that will refill your special weapon energy, additions to make your regular buster shot more effective, and even higher maximum health. Zenny can also be used to help the town as well. Early on, you'll have to fight a cavalcade of bosses across the city, which will destroy things if you're not quick enough. However, you can then help the city by donating Zenny for repairs. When you do so, these things will be repaired as you adventure, eventually leading to a better looking town and maybe even some rewards for the help. Beyond all of this, there are many places you can explore, almost similar to a pared down Elder Scrolls or something, where you can do things like read books, talk to citizens, and just generally find some captivating world building. Everyone has something unique to say, and even though many of the character models look the same, they all grow as the game progresses. Each of these are individuals. However, as you go, the threat of pirates grows as well, meaning it's up to MegaMan to defend catalogs from harm. The Bonds, a bunch of Lego men led by Tronbon and Teasel, are a group of sky pirates who raid islands for treasure. They're absolutely hilarious and really endearing. They are a threat, but they're presented as a group who's not necessarily evil so much as they are just greedy. I think Tronbon's romantic attraction to MegaMan is rather entertaining because it's really innocent and funny. Rather than being used as some sort of serious plot point, it's used to further accentuate the cartoon-like, silly nature of the writing. It would be a detriment rather than a boon if it was taken any more seriously than it is. MegaMan slowly caressed Tron's silky smooth skin, the cold metal of his grenade arm attachment causing her to tremble slightly. Several serve bots watched excitedly through the window as... Whoa! That's not part of the review. How did that get into this folder? It's just a side project I'm working on. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry your pretty little head over it.
MegaMan Legends definitely feels like an early attempt at 3D movement. It's a bit janky and awkward to control MegaMan. The camera is always behind him, and like I said, you turn the camera and therefore MegaMan with L1 and R1. It takes some getting used to, but surprisingly enough, you can get used to it. Outside of a few quirks, it works rather well. This is due in no small part to some clever design decisions to make things easier for the player. First off, the camera moves through most geometry, meaning you'll never really end up in a spot where you can't see what you're doing. The only issue there is when you're looking upwards, because MegaMan takes up a lot of your view. The lock-on sticks to enemies hard, requiring little input from the player, and your weapons will even auto-lock a bit without using the lock-on button, and without turning your camera. MegaMan also has a side roll that makes him invincible for a few frames, as well as a quick turn button, just like most Capcom protagonists of the time. Enemy mobility, outside of a few flying bosses, match Mega Man's moveset and controls well. However, there are a few issues that can become annoying. First of all, Mega Man can't shoot while running backwards for some reason. This means that even when strafing, you can't edge yourself away from enemies without Mega Man pausing his buster fire. Since you use swappable equipment to upgrade your buster, there's a lot of ways to prevent this from being an issue though. You can upgrade your power, fire rate, the amount of shots you can do at a time, range, and the speed of the shots. One interesting little glitch that you can use to your advantage is to tap forward as you fire. Mega Man will inch forward, so you need to be careful, but this completely sidesteps the fire rate stat by resetting Mega Man's animations each time you press forward. If you get a good rhythm, this allows you to fire really quickly and near constantly. There are a few other mechanics and quirks that are questionable. Mega Man has a sort of damage shield that's rarely brought up in game, but it's rather important. This shield is shown by the metal casing around his health bar. When he gets hit, the shield will take some damage, which is displayed by the metal casing opening with red inside. At points, the shield can allow players to avoid damage altogether. However, if you take too much damage too quickly, it can break the shield until you get it repaired by data. This shield seems inconsequential, but it's actually rather important. Battles can become much harder without it because of the amount of damage you take, but the game doesn't really emphasize the importance of this mechanic in any way, which I think is a mistake. I'd be surprised if most people never even realized what the shield was when they're browsing items in the store. Mega Man can also get knocked down by tough hits. Strangely, sometimes he tends to get up facing sideways, or even backwards. This may not seem like a big deal, but it can cause you to take huge extra hits if you're not prepared. It doesn't happen often overall, but it happens much more regularly in the late game bosses because they hit so hard, and it can sometimes sway battle momentum in less than a second. Lock-on, while effective, can also really get in the way sometimes. It has a tendency to lock onto random things rather than the enemy that might be right in front of you. In that way, it's unpredictable, which can also cause you to take unnecessary damage. The side content in Legends is generally really engaging. It's got the perfect mix of direction and exploration. Many of these side quests ask you to prevent the pirates from causing more issues for the city. Others are just good deeds. One of these side quests, for example, tasks you with finding a man's pregnant wife. He tells you that she went for a walk outside of the city. When you go in the direction he points toward, you'll eventually find her in need of medical attention. Funnily enough, at the end of the game, when you can go around saying goodbye to all the citizens of Catalox, you can talk to this family. They'll be super excited to thank Mega Man for his help and tell him that they had a baby boy. Yeah, he knocked her up pretty fast again. Also, where's your new baby? Through these side quests, Mega Man can do a few unspoken good or bad deeds. These deeds will lighten or darken the color of his armor, and will also change everyone's reactions to him. The game itself is more linear than it seems, but this isn't really a bad thing. Again, it's still open, and it gives you good direction for most of the time, but it tries to prevent you from straying too far from the path it wants you to walk, at least until later in the game. There's always plenty to explore though. One part in particular is a bit vague though. There's a point where you need to give up a large yellow refractor to fix a boat, but this part of the game is way too vague. It's confusing because you can't go out of the door toward the boat to fix it until you talk to the right people, but there's no direction given to the player at all. It's all good though, because at least you get to meet Captain Wily. Beating the game will unlock hard mode, which is actually quite a bit harder. Legends is generally a rather comfortable challenge, so hard mode is a welcome addition. Beating hard mode, or beating normal in under 3 hours, unlocks easy mode. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. But easy mode is interesting because it starts Mega Man with the jet boots, an item that maxes out all of his Buster's stats, and he gains 4 times the amount of Zenny from enemies. This was my 3rd time through the game, and from my experience it takes around 7 to 10 hours to beat it if you're exploring thoroughly. Completion takes longer though, due to the grinding needed to max out the stats of all your special weapons. There's a lot of it, and there's not quite enough extra content to fill that out and make it meaningful grinding. Presentation here is fantastic. Yes, the game looks like a PS1 game, and the dungeon interiors are a bit samey, but the art design is amazing here. The same goes for most of the music. It's well made, matches the scenarios it's used in, and I found most of it to be really catchy. None of it got repetitive, though the music for the Bond battle on the lake seems to have a chaotic, almost nonsensical structure. It's hard to tell though, because explosions everywhere! The voice acting is smooth, and works well with the cartoony atmosphere. I particularly like some of the small touches, like making MegaMan struggle a little bit while he's reading in this scene.
Emergency system activation requires direct password input from Eden, or the insertion of 3 level 2, or higher prototype Anthro unit ID cards.
What's a prototype Anthro unit?
The ending is great too, despite clearly trying to set up a sequel. The bigger picture here is about MegaMan's origins. Most of the game is about the pirates, but there's a small undercurrent about catalogs, the mystery surrounding its constant destruction, and ancient technology, and this undercurrent builds tastefully over time. It then becomes the central conflict at the end, and it maintained my interest well. I've never played the sequel, but I've gotta say, I've never been more interested in playing it either. As usual, the improvements here are really simple. Analog control, the ability to shoot while moving backwards, the ability to switch lock-on targets, and a better explanation for the shield. The only other thing that I would like, but it isn't a big deal for me, is for the dungeons to look more diverse. Seriously, that's kind of it. You know what's interesting? Keiji Inafune and the team that worked on MegaMan Legends have remarked before about how they enjoyed working on this game. That's interesting because it's such a different experience from a normal Mega Man game. And that enjoyment shows too. It's clear that these people don't necessarily like making the same game over and over again. These are creative minds who want to innovate and create beautiful things, as are nearly all developers. I don't think we should be so quick to condemn new experiences in an existing series, particularly if they end up as enjoyable as this. What can I say other than gimme more? Have any of you guys ever played Mega Man Legends? How did you like or dislike it? Comment below with your experiences. If you enjoyed this review, feel free to leave a like, share it, and subscribe, all that jazz. It's very, very much appreciated. See you next time.